Welcome back to Left, Wrong, and Center, everyone. I'm here again with my brother Grant, who is essentially the unofficial, but maybe like official co-host
I've been promoted.
of the pod. We're going to get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are weeks where there's big news, and there are weeks where there's like slightly less big news. As I said on the episode that I just released with Daria, I know you're looking at me like that was a dumb thing to say, but it's true. Like, some days it's like, oh, wow, that's like earth-shattering. And then other days it's like, wow, that's horrible.
You said there's big news.
There's big news and there's slightly less big news.
Yeah.
Every single hour something happens. But
Right.
This has been one of those weeks where like it kind of started with a bang. And I mean that literally, not even trying to make a pun. So I just want to get right into it. In Minnesota this past week, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, and then the Speaker of the Minnesota House, Melissa Hortman, and her husband were both shot by a MAGA terrorist. And I think there's a few things that are important to take away from this. First and foremost, the more generic statement is political violence has no place in this country.
I agree.
That's the thing that I think everybody across ideological spectrum should be able to say with no qualms. That's not how we are supposed to be solving our problems. It's not how we solve our problems. It's not how intelligent, civilized people in an intelligent, civilized society solve their problems. And when public officials are under threat, I'm not one of those people that subscribes to the belief that if you see somebody out in public that has done something terrible, like legislatively, that you can't speak to them or you can't disturb them at dinner, or like, I don't necessarily believe that. I think there's a case to be made for decorum in certain situations. It's case by case, yada, yada, yada. And it is person by person too. But when it comes to actually physically harming people, it's wrong, and it should be called out as wrong, and it should be called out as wrong by both sides of the political spectrum. And it was called out as wrong by, as always, one side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, and it was called out by the people who always call out political violence, who always say it's never acceptable, and the president of the United States won't condemn it and won't say anything about it, or call the governor of the state where this horrific shooting took place.
Yeah, and there are MAGA Republicans who are essentially saying, this is what happens if you vote against us. Your life isn't. I saw a tweet, and I don't even remember who it's from, but it's from a higher level ranking MAGA official who said essentially just that, which is like, you get in our way and your lives are in danger. The reason that I say this is I want to drive home to people. As always, it is one side of the political spectrum that is driving us to where we're at.
I would say it's the extremes, so this is where I would push back. I would say the extremes of our political parties are enjoying the violence and the division, and where I see things not differently than you, but what I see is when former president, now President Trump, was shot at last year, next month, it'll be a year. President Biden was on the phone with him within like an hour. And
gave an address from the Oval Office.
Gave an address from the Oval Office.
Which is a rare thing.
Which is very rare. It's not something that happens, and especially for Biden, let's be honest. Political violence violence in general has no place in our partisan politics or in our daily occurrence lives. Killing people is not how we solve our problems. That's what criminals and bad people do. When we're talking about the public good, violence has no place in our party or in our culture.
But I'm going to push back on you now,
for sure,
because it is Republicans that are using violence. It is not the extreme Democrats.
I totally agree. And what I'm saying is, the extremes are doing the same thing. So they're like, well, that Luigi Mandione guy who murders a guy because of the health insurance system, they're like, well, I could get why he can do that. And then you got Mike Lee, this U.S. senator from Utah, who is a conservative Mormon, who is basically meme tweeting about the shooting in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's a big joke.
It's not. And when Nancy Pelosi's husband was brutally attacked with a hammer in their
2022.
home, Donald Trump Jr. was
Gleeful.
laughing about it.
Yeah.
This is not acceptable, but we have to be honest. The left likes their violence too. The far left likes their violence. The normie Republicans and the normie Dems, as so much that the normie Republicans still exist, all condemn this stuff, and the super majority of Democrats condemn this stuff. We have to kick the extremes out of our politics.
I don't disagree about kicking the extremes out of our politics, but I just don't. I did not see any. I think with Luigi Mangione, I talked about that in an earlier episode. I like mixed feelings on that. Obviously, murder is wrong, so there's no mixed feeling there. I think it's one thing when something like that happens, and then there's an intellectual discussion, which not all of it was, but there's a discussion that follows something like that where it goes, okay, this person was driven to murder by the healthcare system, and then you have a conversation about the issue itself. Doesn't justify the murder. It doesn't make it right. And I'm not defending the murder of a man.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm simply not. But I think that conversation was much more like, okay, he did this, and here's why he did this. Now it's time to have a conversation about healthcare. Whereas this is, hey, the Minnesota Democratic, what is it called? Democratic Farmer
Labor Party.
Democratic Farmer Labor Party has
the DFL.
Yes, has 67 seats in the House, and the Republicans have 67 seats in the House. So we are murdering the Speaker of the House to have a 1-seat majority, and in the Senate, John Hoffman, who was shot, he is still alive, but in critical condition.
Right, same with his wife.
I believe that the Senate is 43-45, so it's a very close chamber with Democrats.
I think it's like 1-seat majority as well.
It's two. So with if he were to pass, or if that would have happened, it wouldn't have switched control, but it would have narrowed it down to a 1-seat majority. I think they have a 2-seat majority. I think this is off the top of my head.
And I have to say, so this is something that is.
But what I wanted to say with that is. The New York Times, when this happened, and even my friends who agree with me on the horrific nature of this and who agree with me on the media, were kind of rolling their eyes at me because I was like, of course the New York Times, like, of course this should be the only story in the country right now. Yeah. Which, that morning. And news outlets were updating on it, but they were putting, rather than making their headlines a statement about what happened, a statement about political violence, a statement about an attack on 2 Democratic legislators in the state of Minnesota, the New York Times headline had Tim Walz's words in quotes about political violence. And this appears to be an act of political violence in quotes.
Well, and I went to journalism school, and you're not supposed to put quotes in the headline.
Right.
And that's actually like against the code that we're supposed to be doing.
So my point is, if this were a Republican who were attacked, first of all, Democrats and Republicans. Democrats would immediately condemn it. They would all be wringing their hands. They'd be talking about how horrific it was, and this is just terrible. And my heart and my prayers go out to their family. Blah 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 blah. Republicans would be immediately politicizing it, calling Democrats terrorists. Yada 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 yada. All of the publications would be calling it what it was. Yeah, they'd be calling it terrorism. They'd be calling it political violence.
It is. Yeah.
And there would be no need for quotes. In the New York Times' case, they put Tim Walz's words in quotes so that it's not them who's saying it. They're just reporting what is being said and what other people are saying.
Right.
It's irresponsible journalism.
I agree.
And it goes to the heart of the issue with the American media, in my opinion, which is that there is a bias, and it's not the bias that you think it is. This left-wing media, this left-wing liberal media might have existed 20 years ago.
Barely.
Yeah, but it does not exist now, and the opposite exists now. And the more that this happens, the more I'm vindicated in my belief. I saw, this is like a bit of a topic shift, but I saw like a thing this morning, and I can't remember if it was the Washington Post. I follow a lot of news outlets on the pod page. I have to keep it separate.
I like that.
But it was talking about the New York mayoral race
Yeah.
and all of the New York state officials that condemned Cuomo in 2021 who are endorsing him now.
Yeah, which is real. That's a real story.
Yeah, and it's a valid story, but it's also, and I know that they've talked about, in 2016, like when all of the Republicans were anti-Trump,
Right.
the ones that were running against him were like, he's horrible, he'll ruin the party, he'll ruin the country, and then they turned around and got on board.
Yeah.
I know there have been stories run about that, but it's like there's like this eager desire to seize on Democratic divisions and exploit them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a conversation with a friend in New York, and I've talked about her on this podcast before when we talked about Israel and Palestine. But she was talking to me about the New York mayoral primary, and she was telling me like, okay, if Mamdani gets elected, like I won't be going back to New York for a little bit. Like that's a scary thought. And I was messaging back and forth with her about it, and I'm like, the outcome of this race, the Cuomo Mamdani race,
Mm-hmm.
either way it comes out, the headlines and the discourse are going to be insufferable by design.
I agree.
Because if Andrew Cuomo is elected, and to anybody listening who has a strong opinion on this race, me saying this, I have an opinion on this race. I have an opinion on who I'd be voting for if I were in New York City. I'm not in New York City. If Cuomo's elected mayor, it's going to be the Democrats haven't learned their lesson. They won't change, establishment, blah, 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 blah. If Mamdani is elected, that is a clear change. It's a clear shift in direction. It's a clear departure. And then it'll all be about Democrats are socialists. Democrats have elected a socialist. They've moved too far to the left, blah, 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 blah.
Which would be correct.
That it would be correct,
That
but it's
second part
also
would be correct.
But like what I'm trying to say is like by design,
Well, yeah,
we are doomed to fail in the eyes of the media because the media is actively rooting against us.
Well, and so bringing it back, but I know we want to maybe discuss a little bit about New York City. 2 points. I want to say one thing about Mamdani is that he is a very handsome, very cool, suave socialist that is literally probably has the dumbest ideas I've ever heard of. He's wildly unqualified for the position he's running for, and he's winning because he has a really sexy campaign on social media, and he has a really sexy ad campaign.
Well, to be clear, he's not winning in polling.
No, correct. Sorry. The reason why he's in second place, there's other progressives in the race other than Andrew Cuomo, who you can like it or not is a progressive as well, that are much better than Mamdani to be that standard bearer for the more left wing of the party. But Mamdani is boosted by the anti-Israel rhetoric and his suave, and I'm giving him a compliment, his suave advertisements and his movie star attitude that he has.
What I like about Mamdani is that I like that he, again, to use your phrase, knows how to play ball. Like, and that's not what you mean when you say that, but like he
knows who he's talking to.
And essentially he knows how to run an effective campaign. His messaging is clear, even though he's messaging ideas that many of which, again, we're in the Bernie Sanders sphere.
I've been following the race like really closely for no other reason than I just find it really interesting. I have no connection to New York City. It's whatever. I love watching interviews with him where he's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then the anchor who's interviewing him, and they're not like being like controversial to him. They're like, why is that not translating to the people who like would need all those services? Like, why is your support like skyrocketing people with advanced degrees and people who have PhDs, but you can't get the non-college educated black vote or the non-college educated Latino vote? What's going on there? Like, and then he's like, well, they just have it. And I'm like, no, there's a reason, dude. Like, they don't want what you're offering. Again, some of his ideas are great. Don't get me wrong.
Some of his ideas are great.
The ideas are great. The execution is great. Is not great. My favorite is when hearing Kathy Hochul being like, because the mayor has to work with the governor to raise taxes, right? So the mayor does not have the authority to raise that much taxes on that Mamdani wants to do.
Yeah.
So the governor Hochul is going, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to raise the taxes to 11% from 7% to pay for all these dreams that you have. Going back to the political violence thing, I want to make it clear. Political violence, again, has no place in our politics.
Right.
The media is at fault in a lot of this. In my opinion, the guy who shot Trump, the lunatic who shot Trump, both of them, the second one who shot at him and the one who clipped his ear, and the people who...
Both Republicans, by the way.
Well, right. So, and then the person who went into these state legislators' houses...
Republican.
He's a Republican as well. Is bad. They are terrorists and they should be treated like such. And when I say terrorists, I do not mean like Guantanamo Bay terrorists, but they are terrors to society and they need to have the entire book thrown at them.
Yes.
And the guy who shot the Speaker of the Minnesota House and the Senator Hortman, he's going to be charged federally under the death penalty, and I think that's a valid argument.
I agree.
There's no place for it.
I do need to overemphasize.
Yeah, for sure.
I need to overemphasize, kind of tying New York Times, political violence, and what I just said. All three of these people, Republicans. First of all, I think it's funny that Democrats are weak, emasculated soy boys who can't do anything, and yet we're supposed to be these hard terrorists that are
That's
masquerading as Republicans. we're pretending to be Republicans shooting Democrats.
The guy who shot the people at Trump's rally was a mentally deranged person.
Right.
He probably could have shot...
So a Republican.
He probably would have chosen to... if school was in session, he probably would have shot up a kindergarten. He wanted to be a terrorist. That's what he wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think his was genuinely politically motivated. I think he wanted to make...
well, didn't he also have plans to target Biden?
Biden and who's the Attorney General? Merrick Garland. Those are the two people he had seen where they were going to be, and Trump happened to be the closest. He wanted to make a name for himself.
Right.
And no one's ever going to remember him. He's a piece of shit.
I don't remember his name now.
Right. I do remember his name, but I'm not going to say it. He is a piece of shit, and I'm glad he's dead. The other people, like Luigi Mangione and this guy who shot these lawmakers, they deserve the book thrown at them. Whatever the federal government wants to charge them with, I'm fine with. You can't just walk up to someone in the middle of New York City and gun them down, with a ghost gun, by the way. And then you can't just go into a state representative or a state senator's house and gun them down either.
Right.
That's not how things are working here in America, and they need to be made an example of. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm not... I get that people have frustration, but we could flip the script on not what you're saying, but what people say about Luigi Mangione, where they're going, well, he has a point, the healthcare system's bad. This lunatic who shot these two Democratic lawmakers, what's stopping Republicans going, well, he had a point. What the DFL is doing in Minnesota is really bad.
Except that a lot of people are saying that.
No, exactly.
A lot of Republicans are saying that.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
So violence is never acceptable.
Right. I agree.
But
go ahead. Sorry, before I lose it. The point that I wanted to make was the New York Times, again, their headline about Melissa Hortman being shot and killed was something along the lines of Minnesota lawmaker killed in shooting.
Yeah,
so it's
been
vague.
Yeah.
And if you're scrolling by, which most people are not reading the articles, most people are not getting the details. They're scrolling by and it's like, oh, another shooting. Okay, keep going.
I have to tell
Melissa Hortman, I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Melissa Hortman was murdered by a MAGA Republican terrorist in her home. This man was posing as a police officer and
wearing a weird mask.
Wearing a mask. He shot both of them. All four people in question. This MAGA Republican terrorist shot all four of these people. 2 of them are dead. 2 of them are not. Then the New York Times posted this article. I commented as Left Wrong Center Pod. Follow me on Instagram. And said, corrected the headline. You know how people do that in the comments. And it was shot by a MAGA terrorist.
Right.
I got dozens of responses.
Yeah.
From the MAGA bots. This was within minutes.
Yeah.
The headline was posted within a few hours. These people were already programmed to call this person a Democrat who was appointed to a board by Governor Walz. He's a Democrat. He's a leftist radical Democrat. Yeah. These people, it's I don't know if I want to use the word scary because I'm not scared of them, But like this is a deranged
group of people,
a deranged subsect of the population who are taking marching orders completely blindly. And I think we are in many ways desensitized to the word cult. MAGA is a cult, and this is what we mean by that. We are not living in the same reality with 40% of the country. If a Republican, when his roommate comes out and says he was not a Democrat, he'd be offended to be called a Democrat, he was a Trump supporter.
Right.
And the talking points have been propagated to the cult that quickly about this is a radical leftist Democrat who shot and killed a Democratic lawmaker.
Right.
First of all, it doesn't make sense. And second, it's just not true. And it's kind of batshit. It's kind of insane how quickly they fall into step, and they do it so gleefully. It's not even like they're saying something like, "Well, I heard it was a Democrat," or "I think it was a Democrat," or like there's not even uncertainty about it. It's just they believe what they have been told to believe, with plenty of evidence to the contrary.
And it doesn't matter if he's a Democrat or not, Kyle. He still murdered someone.
But it does, because he wasn't.
But here's the deal. There's a lot of Democrats who vote for Trump, and they are part of the cult. Like, this is a thing that we don't need to spend time debunking, because the facts are the facts. This guy was not a Democrat.
Right, but to the people listening, or to anyone listening, it is, like, you cannot give an inch with these people.
Well, and again, this needs to be condemned at all levels, and I don't believe the president has, and I think everyone else in their capacity has the moral high ground to do this. And I do want to say one last thing on this topic is that we should not be, public service is public service. So these people, like, they're elected to represent like 100,000 people in Minnesota. Right. Like, they are like people, like our mom always says, she's like, the state representative who represented my district, we never knew if he was a Republican or a Democrat growing up. And he was just a guy. Like, we knew him. Like, he dropped his kids off at school. Like, we went over to his house, like, to hang out with the kid, like, with her friends. Yeah. She's like, you cannot be, people are people regardless of where they are on the political spectrum. And the moment we start,
there are ways to make a statement, that do not involve physical harm.
Exactly. Yep.
And speaking of state reps, Ryan Bizzaro, when this happened, posted something on social media about how, like,
he's our state rep.
Yeah. Like, how this kind of behavior makes people not want to run, or makes the good people not want to run.
Right. And you can tell.
And I think that's part of the design here.
Well, you can tell like. And you could ask me in person who I'm saying, but like, a lot of times we are not running our best people for these offices across the board,
right,
because of things like this. Who in their right mind will want to deal with this type of stuff all day long?
Right.
And you can see it in a lot of states, especially states that aren't competitive, the type of lawmakers that are elected to different places, they're not the best people,
right,
for the job, but the best people for the job don't want to risk their lives,
right, because
what's the point at the end of the day?
Right.
And the moment we start normalizing this is the moment we lose ourselves as a country.
Yeah. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the New York race. We discussed it a little bit.
We skimmed it a little bit.
Skimmed it a little bit. I think we can go back and talk about it. So,
I've watched all the debates, and I've watched all the one-on-one interviews with each candidate.
I haven't watched all the debates, and I've only watched a few interviews. There are a couple people in this race that I like.
Yeah.
I'm conflicted, and part of me is glad I don't live in New York City, because I like Adrian Adams as a person. I like Brad Lander, which he had a little moment this week, which we can kind of get into. My feeling on Cuomo versus Mamdani, I want to strip away the people for 2 seconds, and talk strictly about the platforms.
Yeah.
If it were not Andrew Cuomo, like, with his checkered history, and
his alleged checkered history, he's never been charged with the crime.
No, but the harassment piece, and like we talked a little bit about that last week, how I've experienced that. It's
of course, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing, and it's a valid sticking point. If it were like a different guy in Andrew Cuomo's position,
Yeah.
who was running on all the same stuff, that person would have my like enthusiastic support.
Your first choice.
Yeah, I think that I watched an interview with him. He makes a lot of so what's fascinating is you sent me the interview.
Oh yeah, from the Free Press.
From the Free Press, and it's somebody, I think the interviewer likes him, and I think is rooting for him to win. Like it was kind of clear that
it was a softball interview.
it wasn't like a hardcore like let me press you on these issues kind of thing. However, it was very issues focused, and so I was watching this interview with Andrew Cuomo, and I was like, okay, every time he starts talking about the current state of the Democratic Party and starts talking about what happened last year, he and I are on completely different pages. I think a lot of the points that he makes are he's running for mayor and for president at the same time. He wants to be the mayor of New York City, and I think he also fancies himself as the voice of reason in the Democratic Party in 2025. And I think if he were to win this primary, he's going to win the general. And I think when he wins the general, he's going to immediately start launching a campaign for president. I think it feels inevitable that he's going to do that. I don't agree with his and again, we're in a position where Andrew Cuomo or Zohan Mamdani, like those are the two. It's going to be one of those two people who wins this primary. So like, take all the fantasy out of it. Take all of the like, I wish it was somebody else. It's not. It's one of those two people that's going to be the Democratic nominee. So like,
well, and people, let me be clear too on this. Like, people had other options too. They've just chosen to go with those two.
Right.
There's other great I want to just say this before we get too deep into this.
Yeah.
Zelnor Myrie is my candidate who I would vote for, but he's polling at 1%.
Yeah.
And Whitney Tilson also would be my second choice or first choice.
Yeah.
And he's polling at 1%.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about the two people who are leading the polls right now, who are most likely one of them is going to be the nominee.
Yeah.
And that's why we're talking about it.
So you have two radically different, I sound like Kamala Harris, but you have two radically different visions for New York City, for the state of the Democratic Party.
Right.
It's boiled down to this because this is who people have rallied behind.
Mamdani is not a Democrat. That's the other thing.
Correct.
That, like, this is where I'm at. I'm so sorry. Like, there was a debate moment where they listed all the things that are listed on the DSA website, and they were like, Mr. Mamdani, like, you're supported by the DSA. Do you support these things? And he's like, oh, no, my campaign's different from the DSA. No, like, the things that they support are genuinely horrific, and like they support violence against Jews, for example.
That's something that I wanted to bring up.
Like, he is not, and I don't care. I know that I have a bunch of people who don't live in New York City who are posting all about him. I don't really care that he is running in my party, but he's not a Democrat. He never has been a Democrat. He's a DSA member.
Yeah.
And that is something that needs to be beaten over the head of these voters, where this guy doesn't actually care about you. It's all about him.
Yeah.
About how handsome he is and how he's suave. That's what he is. Like, it's actually kind of creepy watching him like perform, because I can tell when someone's faking it, and he's faking it. Like, it's like he's putting on an act.
Yeah.
And people are like, he's so real. And I'm like, no, like, no one talks like that in real life. Now, Cuomo, on the other hand, I agree with you. I like his policy platform.
Well, so yeah, with Cuomo, I know that you and I are on this. So I
would not be gung ho about Cuomo if I lived in New York City. Right?
It makes me uncomfortable, and it makes me uncomfortable socially, because it's like, okay, in terms of policy platform, I think that, like, again, strip away all of the history of Andrew Cuomo.
Take the two platforms.
Yes, take the two platforms. I think Cuomo's is better for New York City in this moment in time.
Right.
When you talk about the consequences of November of 2024, when people's immediate reaction was the Democratic Party is going to move to the center, move rightward, whatever. Cuomo has a progressive history. Cuomo was a liberal Democratic governor of New York State,
who was reelected 3 times.
Yeah, and
clearly popular, I should say.
And yeah, I like.
And then he resigned in disgrace, which, to be completely frank with you, I understand. I don't think he should have resigned.
If we're talking last week's lesson, which we want to talk about this too, but last week what we discussed was like Democrats saying what they mean.
Yeah.
and not beating around the bush, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I abhor sexual.
Stay up and fight the allegations if that's what you believe, and then get primary
Or,
in 2022.
Or say, hey, you know what? I messed up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This was inappropriate behavior. Maybe he didn't realize what he was doing was inappropriate. I don't know. It's been too long since I read those things.
Accused of,
and I can hear it now. Like people listening to this and being like, "Oh, you guys are
no."
Yeah, and so like that's what we need to get away from.
No,
it's
the thing that I would say about him is the things that he was accused of doing, first of all, are of course not right in a workplace environment.
Correct.
Right? So asking someone about their sex life is not appropriate for the work life. Innuendos are not appropriate for work. I do not believe so a state trooper accused him of like touching her inappropriately. I don't believe that one, to be completely frank. That one's not corroborated. But the ones where he's being just a creepy old guy is different, in my opinion, than like someone like, I don't know, Donald Trump, who was convicted of sexual
and has a long documented history.
Right. So he's a creep. Don't get me wrong. He can be creepy towards young women, right? There's a difference, and he needs to take responsibility for that, and he has not yet.
Yeah.
And that's something I hope that he just said, and that's where like I'm watching these debates. I'm like, if you literally just said, yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I shouldn't have done what I did. I'm better now. I'm not going to be like that.
Yeah.
That would be like, I'm with him all the way. Because his background is very impressive.
His legislative background and his leadership background. And again, like in this interview with the Free Press, I heard about crime. I heard about immigration.
Yep.
And I heard a nuanced platform on immigration. I heard it was a let's have a plan for how we handle immigrants.
Yep.
Let's continue to welcome immigrants to our country. We're a country of immigrants, and yet we have to be a nation of laws. He was talking, and this is not somebody, by the way, who's like, yes, I support ICE. I'm going to let ICE run rampant.
Again, if you take his platform, tell me what you're against, right? His platform is extremely liberal, like without a doubt. He just is more pragmatic about it.
But he's actually speaking to the issues and saying, this is what I believe.
Right.
It's hard to do that in this day and age because it's so easy to say, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. It's much harder to say, this is what I believe in. And Mamdani is doing that too, but it's a little bit more pie in the sky. And so where I struggle with this is like, New York City, as we've talked about, is a liberal place. It's a blue
bastion.
It's a blue bastion or whatever. My concern with a Mamdani election is you're going to get this guy in there who has all these great ideas on paper. He will have a council that won't cooperate with him. I mean, that's not the fear. The fear is that there's going to be all this friction.
He's not going to get anything done.
He's not going to get anything done that he says he's going to get done. And yet the brand will damage the brand. And so New York City will see further rightward shifts.
Right.
I think Cuomo is doing a better job actually speaking to the issues that the average person cares about. He's talking about transit. He's talking about like I said, immigration. He's talking about taxes. He's talking about teachers' unions and schools.
Right.
It's actual, tangible things that you can hold in your hand and say, here's what he says he's going to do. When it comes to Mamdani, I saw a tweet the other day from November 5th of 2020, like the election, like the presidential election, that said something like queer liberation is defunding the police.
Who said that?
Mamdani.
What? Oh, well, hey, that's great.
And I'm like, during Pride Month? Like, what are you...
When did he tweet that?
He tweeted it in November 2020. But I'm like reading it and I'm like, what?
He's just full of it. I'm sorry. He's full of it. And the thing is, a lot of people like that. And I just was messaging one of my friends.
This is all, by the way, like you mentioned who your candidates are.
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to my heart, my candidate would be somebody like Brad Lander. Before the little thing that happened this week.
Yeah, right.
I was kind of I was keeping up
with
him loosely. I like
him. He's fine. I also think he's full of shit. So I'm listening to these debates. I'm like, this guy is sounding like a cartoon character. Like,
sure.
They're not talking about things that actually matter.
So it's like, this is one of those races where it's like, do I love any of them? No.
Like, I think a couple of them have their hearts in the right place.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's
I think Audrey, is it Adrienne?
Adrienne Adams?
Adrienne Adams. Like, she's great. She's fine.
Yeah.
She's not my type of Democrat, but she's still a Democrat. Like,
Yeah.
she's fine. Zelnor Myrie has no chance of winning. Jessica Ramos has no chance of winning. Whitney Tilson has no chance of winning.
Yeah.
They're all great. I really like them. But the front runners both have some issues. And one of them is real and has a record to run on, which is Andrew Cuomo. And the other one has a pie-in-the-sky socialist agenda where it involves defunding the police, hating Jews, and advocating for Hamas and the Iranian regime.
On hating Jews, I want to mention that specifically because I saw a clip of him the other day. It was shared by somebody that I follow.
I'm sure.
I have a lot of people that live in New York City that I'm friends with. I lived there for a couple of years.
Right.
About it, and it was a clip of him crying, talking about the messages, and you just kind of went, ugh. I'm not.
I know what you're saying. I'm not.
Do you know the interview clip I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm not saying.
He's crying
about
the messages that he gets that are anti-Muslim in rhetoric,
right? Which are wrong.
Yep. So like this is where I see people sharing these, and I'm like, these are people who have never once shared anything that's happening to Jewish Americans right now. So it's and this conversation is an ebb and flow. It's push and pull. I can just hear the screams like of people listening to this. But it's like the New York Times released stats on like the most hate crimed people.
It's Jews
in the United States. It's Jews.
Right.
Followed right below by the LGBTQ
and
community.
Then Muslims, isn't it?
I don't remember who was in third.
It's the Olympics.
But like Jews are like
top.
And it's not close.
It's not close.
And so when I see these things that he's sharing, I'm like, okay, I have compassion for that.
I get it.
Anti-Muslim hatred
bigotry is bad too.
It's bigotry.
Right.
It's wrong.
It's bad.
And so like a lot of people that I'm friends with and that I talk to on social media, like I've been sharing a lot of stuff about like what Jews are experiencing right now because I don't see anybody else speaking out for them.
I totally agree.
I don't share a lot of the more Muslim stuff, even though I have in the past and will continue to do so because I believe both are wrong. But it's like you can't just like I think most Democratic politicians and Democratic leaders have done a fairly nice job, especially since 9/11. We went all in and we were like, no, these are people. Stop villainizing people because they are Muslim. And now we're in an age where it's like, okay, like Jewish people need our help. Jewish people need us to speak out for them. It doesn't mean we abandon defending.
We need to take the same principle that we took after 9/11, where it was not all Muslims are responsible for 9/11, right?
Right.
Which clearly is a true statement.
Right.
And not all Jews are chill with what Israel. You can disagree with the state of Israel is doing. Not all Jews are related to what the state of Israel is doing in response to their horrific terrorist attack. But the lesson has not been learned.
Right.
So I have a friend who I went to school with who is a practicing Jewish person. And I messaged him left and right because we message back and forth. We send things to each other. And I was like, I want to share this on my story to like put awareness to it. I was like, but I'm going to get absolutely slaughtered if I post this because people have their narrow views. Someone started a fight with me the other day, and we can go into it. It's more about Iran, but it's like no, dude, like the Iranian regime is bad. It's like objective. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The people, of course, but you know what? 90% of the people in Iran hate the regime too. So it's not. I'm not going anti-Muslim. I'm not going anti-Iranian.
Yeah.
I'm going anti-regime, and it's okay to say that.
Yeah.
But you know why Iran wants a nuclear weapon? Why do they want a nuclear weapon? Am I saying nuclear right?
You're saying it wrong, but
nuclear.
That's how his cat is named, Nuclear Warhead.
Nuclear Warhead.
Pronounced incorrectly, so maybe it's just in your mind.
Just there. Why do they want?
Tell us why, Grant.
Why do they want a nuke?
Tell us why, Grant.
Not my beautiful cat. They want a nuke to nuke Israel. So they are the most genocidal regime in the world, and they want a nuke so they can blow up Israel.
Right.
And there's no talk about that.
And I have to say, it's been absolutely stunning.
I'm sure that the left wing would love that, by the way.
Exactly. It's been absolutely stunning to watch all of these Middle Eastern experts now expand their expertise to the state of
which is not in the Middle East. Fun fact: it's actually in Asia. And yes, no, there's a new expert every day. It's a real thing.
So like, Trump is being Trump and is like, I might, get involved in the conflict. I might not. Who knows what I'm going to do? And like, a liquid sack of shit is solid twice a day in this case, where it's like and that is not me. That is not me saying Trump good or Trump has the right idea. The United States, it is in our interest, it is in the world's interest that Iran does not have nuclear weapons. And for anybody to dispute that because of their hatred for Israel.
My favorite though is like, but we have nukes.
No, but seriously, it is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it is.
To watch Whoopi Goldberg on The View defending Iran. It is mind-blowing to see the infographics that have suddenly popped up that people are sharing, people who are not politically informed, people who, and again, it's like a lot of people in New York City are sharing these like things about
they're taking that lens. They're doing it through, again, I'm just being straight shooter with this. They're going through a racial lens. They think that it's white people against brown people, and that's not the case.
Right. I agree.
They think that they're saving the world by posting these things. It's not true.
Right.
I remember our mom posted on Facebook once where I came down. This was when I was younger, not that much younger, but I came down and I sat down with her and I was like, why do people not care about foreign policy? This is not what I meant. These people, like foreign policy is very important, but it's actually something that you need to study and look up. It's not as black and white as people want them to believe it, right?
And to the point that we made a couple episodes ago, you are not going to get, like, there are certain things you can say politically, right? Where it's like, gay rights are human rights.
Yeah,
check.
I agree. Yep.
Women's rights are human rights.
I agree.
Check. Racism is bad. Check.
I agree.
There are so many things that you can say where it's like, it is a clean statement and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When you are dealing with
countries that have existed and people who have existed longer than the United States has been around.
And when you're talking about people who have these long-standing conflicts globally, where there is no people in my generation and younger cannot seem to wrap their mind. And I'm not an Iran expert, which is why I'm not going super into the weeds. And you're going a little more into the weeds than I am.
I'm not an expert, but I've done more than the average person. I've taken classes
I shared
on
something.
this region.
I shared something on my own Instagram story about how I want the United States involved in a conflict? No, most Americans don't.
I do
it was
not
like
either.
15% of Trump voters and 3% of Harris voters want us to get involved.
Right.
It's an unpopular position.
It is.
Like we don't want to get involved, and I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with
that.
But
I basically said something to that effect of like, I'm not saying we do this. I'm not advocating for this at all.
Right.
But like, let's remember, Iran are not the good guys.
Right. I remember you posted that.
And somebody, the same person actually that I was talking to you about that, that had a little take on Israel that I was like, I can't even slid into my DMs, and his response was, no. And I'm like, well stated. Great job.
I've talked to some Iranian refugees. You should ask them about what the regime has done to them. And
that would involve actually
learning
something.
And the thing is, I am not an expert on any of these subjects. So after October 7th, so I have a little more context than the average person. My background's my undergrad. I had a lot of history classes, right?
Yeah, sing it.
But Israel, I was not an expert on. I still am not an expert on it. But what I did is I looked up unbiased facts on it, and I made a decision on where I'm going to be at with things. But when we're talking about Iran, this goes it is very complicated, and it's not something you can learn about on a infographic book. Infographic on Instagram. I've read books on this subject by people who hold PhDs in history of Iran and history in the Middle East. I've read books on people who are experts on this subject, and let me tell you what, I have a better understanding than most people on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay to say that.
Yep.
And if you wanted to ask me about Latin American history and Caribbean history, that's what my minor was in.
Yeah.
I'm all in to talk to you about it, but of course no one cares about that. You have to find right sources, and you have to understand where you're coming from. Iran has been nothing but a nuisance to the Middle East and Asia since 1979. They fund every terror organization that has hurt Americans. Their military actively killed American servicemen in Iraq during the Iraq adventure in 2003 to 2011. Actively. They are not a good actor. That doesn't mean we need to go to war with them. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go after the Democrats here, but they're like, well, we had an agreement under Obama that they wouldn't enrich uranium. Da, 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 da. The agreement was never going to be followed. That's the truth. They were not going to follow the agreement. They got money that we were holding since 1979 for the exchange. It was not a working deal. These people are bad people. Sometimes again, the regime is bad, not the people.
Right.
But sometimes Americans need to understand that we have the best thing in the world going on here, and there are bad people who want to take it away from us.
Yeah.
And the Iranian regime is one of them.
Right.
Imagine if they have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
A nuclear weapon, not good.
Yeah.